Welcome to the WellCast. Life is messy. We're here to help you sort it out.
Well, welcome back to another episode of the WellCast. My name is Mike Sirasoni, and I'm joined, as always, by Jordan Hogue. Jordan, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Are you sure? You sounded unsure.
I'm feeling very peaceful in this moment.
Oh,
thank you. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Just relaxed and
Yeah, we're filming this.
Yeah.
So, I think we need to. How do you feel about that?
Well, I think people who are watching it are like, duh.
Yeah.
Yeah. But people who are listening to audio are like, I can watch it on video now, and I can see Jordan's beautiful
and so we
face.
can stare into the camera and make it look. Okay, so.
Yeah.
What the heck are we talking about?
Yeah, we have Molly DeFrank on the podcast today.
And you grew up with Molly.
I did grow up with her. We went to high school together. So,
formative years.
Yeah, we met.
Is she married?
She married the one and only David DeFrank. She did not marry Mark Sneed.
That's her brother.
That is her brother.
I almost mixed it up.
Yes, you didn't almost mix it up. You went there.
No.
Mark Sneed's sister, Molly, the three of us grew up in Simi Valley and went to the same high school. Mm-hmm. And now we all ended up in Fresno, which is a strange turn of events.
That is super funny.
The Lord led us here, and we're happy to continue our friendship. But she is an accomplished author, and she wrote a book called Digital Detox.
Yeah.
And it's all about 2 weeks, a 2-week journey for detoxing your kids from technology.
Yeah.
And it's kind of taking the world by storm. She was on The Doctors, like the show.
I don't even know what that is, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, it's a real show. I think it's on ABC. They flew her down to LA and
whoa, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was on The Doctors because this is such a pressing issue. Medical experts are talking about how important of an issue it is because technology's become the new drug. Mm-hmm. Drugs are still drugs.
Yeah, drugs are still.
Yeah, they're still a thing. Yeah. But in a lot of ways, this is the new.
It's one of the most prevalent addictions. The screens, right?
Kids, adults, boys,
girls. I think what you guys will see is this is really a conversation about the whole family.
Yeah.
And what our relationship as human beings is with technology.
And she's going to talk about it. And I love this aspect of what she writes is that it's doable. Mm-hmm. She's not saying get rid of technology forever and become Amish, right?
Yeah, sometimes the pendulum swings either way.
And technology's evil and we should never have it ever again.
Yeah.
She makes a really good case that this 2-week reset is something that every family should experience because it gives us a healthy view of technology.
It's a tool.
Yeah, it's a tool.
And like most tools, it can be misused.
Yeah, and she does a great job talking through what it's meant for her and her family.
Yeah. And
the experiences that they've had.
It's good for me to hear her process because she's for reals put this into play.
They've been doing
a whole gaggle of kids.
Yeah, they're in our life group.
Yeah.
So they lead our life group. So her and David, her husband, they lead our life group, and we joke that we're a small church. We call ourselves the Friant campus. We meet in Friant, and we've got it was really funny.
Oh, yeah.
But we have 24 adults and over 40 kids in our life group.
What?
Yeah, and it works for us.
Chill.
It really does. And
save some kids for the rest of us.
Yeah, you can have some of ours, I'm sure. But her and her family have put this into practice, and so they're speaking not just from. It's not just idealistic.
Yeah,
it's actually practical. They've put it in, and they've really benefited from it, and so have other families in our life group. And so we've kind of battle tested it, and it's been a really healthy thing.
And I hope when you guys listen to this and watch it, whatever you do, that you approach your technology with a different idea and remember that you as a parent, but also just as a believer, are first and foremost a disciple.
Yeah.
And then you are discipling your kids.
Right.
And so that has to do with any of the influences in their world. And people are going to approach technology in different ways. And so I think what we see here is a really balanced view that says, at the very least, do not just give way to what the world says or gives you as far as technology.
Yeah, be intentional, right?
Be intentional with your family and with your own walk.
Yeah, and I think, as we think through this episode, my hope is that, as you hear this, every parent handles technology differently. Mm-hmm. So this is one really well thought out approach to handling technology in the home, but there's no judgment, right? We're all trying to sort through what technology looks like in our home. And so what I appreciated was, Molly's gonna put out one way to do it, and it makes a lot of sense. But she's gonna present arguments and things like that kind of allow people to make their own decision about what technology looks like in their home.
Yeah, it's really great. Well, we hope you guys enjoy it. And as always, please subscribe to our podcast and share it.
Share it with your friends.
Yeah, if you find it valuable, please share with your friends so that we can come and meet you in your ear pods.
Every time we release one.
Yeah, super weird way of saying please just subscribe.
Let's jump into the episode with Molly DeFrank on her book, Digital Detox. Well, we are here with Molly DeFrank. Molly is an author, and she wrote a great book. Molly, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Molly, tell us a little bit about your book. What's the title? What's it about?
Yeah, the book is Digital Detox, the 2-week tech reset for kids. And it's basically a guide to help parents put technology in its right place in the home. So it's 2-week digital detox is the first half, walks you through that. And then the second half is how to create a long-term plan, because most people don't want to ditch all technology forever.
And
so that's the book.
You have kids?
I do. I have a lot of kids.
That's good.
It's good to write a book for kids.
Did,
yeah, that would be speaking into something.
This is gotcha journalism. So
yeah.
I was trying to
Darn it, you got me. Yeah. No, I got a ton of those, and they're awesome. I have 6 kids.
Yes, you do.
Instant credibility.
Thank you so much. We've had
We're
more.
Not worthy.
Yeah. 6 kids runs in their family, I think.
I know. We do.
I was feeling sorry for myself this morning, having a baby and a toddler.
You have it so hard.
Great. Yeah, I feel
honestly,
great
I feel like 2 kids was the hardest number of kids.
Yeah, Mike.
Once you learn 2 kids, it's like, you just bring in, you're making 2 PB&Js, make a 3rd, make a 4th.
2 was really hard until we had 3 and then 4. And now I'm like, there's twice as many of them.
We're outnumbered. Yeah.
That's how it feels sometimes, but we don't have 6, so
8 DeFranks?
There's 8 of us.
Running around?
Yeah.
It's, well, usually my husband and I are running around. Sometimes chasing. So yeah, maybe 8 different running around. That's accurate.
Yeah.
So our kids are ages 5 to 12 right now. Yeah, it's very busy. It is loud, but it's fun.
Are there even 6 numbers in between 5 and 12? There is.
2 of them are the same age.
Numbers.
So
smart.
That's good. That was really good counting.
Thanks. Really good counting.
Good job.
Nice.
Thanks.
We got Goodwill Hunting over here.
Yeah, awesome. 2 of our daughters are both 6. So they're actually 8 hours apart because one's biological and one came to us through foster care.
Well, that's awesome.
So they're like twins, kind of twins.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys ever talk about that in a sort of twins way?
Yeah. They love sharing. Well, actually, they don't share a birthday. They're born on different days because the 8 hours come across. But they always want to have. I know, it's kind of funny, but they always want to have a party together. So
Sweet.
that's fun.
Wow.
They're all best buddies.
You have this big family, probably ever growing,
Yeah.
and you started getting passionate at some point about this idea of technology in the family and all that stuff. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that's a good question. So I've always had a passion for discipleship and motherhood, and just encouraging moms and helping parents connect with their kids. And ironically, I haven't always been passionate about putting screen time in the right place in the home. And it wasn't really until we did it ourselves that I realized how transformative it could be and how much digital entertainment was hindering our ability to connect with our kids and hindering their ability to connect with each other, their attention spans. It was harming their moods.
Yeah.
We were seeing some behavioral issues. And I wish I could tell you guys that I had researched it and like a genius, it like popped into my brain. But no, it was a good old-fashioned case of mother has had it. Basically, I'm like, no, that's it. We're pulling the plug. I'm over this.
What were the signs and symptoms and things that you started seeing that led to that?
Yeah, so it was like we noticed there were amped up sibling fights around screen time, like during and right after. And it was like next level. So growing up, I was one of 4. We had our own sibling fights. These were kind of like taking it up a notch. Some age inappropriate tantrums, some like lack of interest in non-screen activities. My 3 oldest kids, their favorite hobbies were all different video games. And I thought that was normal. So I'm like, oh, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
So it wasn't until finally I had it. I came home from running errands and one of my kids greeted me at the door with, "Can I play on your phone?" I'm like, what is this? This isn't sweet.
Remember when you used to say hi to me?
Exactly.
How was your day?
Right.
Have a
None of this, none of the
conversation.
pleasantries. It was like, hey, gatekeeper,
Yeah.
give me a fix.
Oh.
So I called David at work and I'm like, we need to pull the plug. And he was into it. And he's like, let's do it. That's great.
Was it ceremonial?
It was, well, not really. We sort of like stumbled into this thing. But we told the kids at dinner, and we're like, just want you guys know, it's not a punishment. We're trying something new.
This is for you.
You guys, we love you so much, and it did not go well. It did not go
You also
smoothly.
can't have any cake. Like,
They were not excited about it.
Yeah.
And it was one of those parenting things where on the outside, you're like, and this is what we're doing, and we love you. But on the inside, they're crying, and I'm like, oh no, what did I do?
Yeah.
Was this a mistake? And so I was really nervous. But the next day, they just started playing with the toys on their shelves and playing with each other and creating and taking up new hobbies. And it was really kind of like flipping a switch for us. We removed the option of digital passive entertainment.
yeah.
And they started pursuing other things.
So I think most parents, I mean, when you say that, Kristen and I, we've actually done something similar. I mean, you inspired us to actually take your challenge that you write about in your book. And I think most parents think, hey, if I take screen time away, either A, that's my babysitter, right? I mean, how am I supposed to get anything done if I don't have screens for my kids?
That's a tough decision sometimes.
Yeah, because I mean that's the go-to nowadays, and either that or they think that the kids are going to be like rebellious and throw things, at the TV, which would be counterproductive to what they actually want anyway.
Yeah.
But what was your kind of experience with that? Like, how did it make being a mom harder? Did you have a harder time finding things to occupy your kids' time?
That's a great question. Probably the most common one I get. So if all we did was take all digital entertainment away and change nothing else, then yes, probably your life would get harder. But part of this 2-week window is that you're turning down the outside influence in digital entertainment and you're kind of turning up your parental superpowers of observing your kids and cultivating their unique giftings and talents and interests. And a lot of parents say, and this was our experience too, that you learn things about your kids in this window that you didn't realize before. One of our kids loves art, loves drawing, loves teaching the other kids how to draw and create. And I didn't know that until we took all the passive entertainment away. But the reason why you're not just taking away the babysitter, what actually happens is that you take away this crutch of passive entertainment and the kids start to develop their creativity and their boredom negotiation skills. And so once they practice that and get better at it, now when they hit the boredom wall, they're like, oh, I know how to resolve this. And they start to realize, like, I can create. What's that? Boredom is your creativity calling out to you. It's beckoning you, like, make something, wonder, read, And too often we're numbing out our kids' boredom rather than helping them use it as a driver to see, like, how has God designed you? Like, one of our kids loves to build. He can build Lego and all kinds of anything. And he has such a high frustration tolerance. Like, someone else will knock that tower over and I'm like, oh man, if that was me, I would lose it. But he's like, okay. And he'll like rebuild. I'm like, dang, like, are you going to be an engineer? Look at you. This is amazing. But so often today, so many kids are not building towers for hours. They're not exploring outside. They're not painting. They're not tinkering on the piano. So to come back to your question, it's that they will fill the time. It takes a little bit of effort, but they learn to fill that time with more worthwhile things that isn't just passive entertainment that requires nothing of them.
Did you experience the actual detox?
Withdrawals?
Did they have cold sweats?
Yeah, good question.
What was that?
So we, this isn't true for every family, but for us, it was pretty much like flipping a switch. We didn't, and maybe that was one of the blessings of having a large family. There's always someone to play with. We didn't notice that sort of detox removal stress type thing. But I have had some families who I've helped say, it's kind of like potty training, that 3-day potty training thing where the first couple of days it's a mess. You know, people are crying, it's hard. And then something clicks and they get it. And it's way better than it was before you started.
So your book is about this 2-week detox for kids. Why 2 weeks? And what did you see why is that the cutoff?
That's a good question too. Okay, so first of all, I 2 weeks I chose because I think that is a good length. You can do anything for 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
I could start up running for 2 weeks. I could eat I tried a Whole30. I called it a Whole13. I didn't quite make it halfway. But you can do anything for 2 weeks. So, come on.
P14X.
Yeah.
That workout.
Nice, yeah.
So I think it's doable. Number one. Number two, it's enough time to start to see results. And number three, I do tell parents, like, if your kids are young enough, and you do need to tailor this, if you've got like a 14-year-old and it's going to look different than if you have a 4 or 5-year-old. So parents will need to bear that in mind. I talk about that in the book too. But wait, what was the question you just asked me? Oh, 2 weeks. Okay. Yeah. I highly recommend that if your kids are young enough and you can leave that time frame open-ended, don't commit yourself to 2 weeks. If you can tell your kids, this is what we did, until further notice, we're taking a break from digital entertainment, do that.
Yeah.
If it's fair for your kids. If your kids are old enough to where you've already given them a phone, they have their own devices, it's a little bit stickier, you may need to talk to your spouse about that, figure it out. But if you can because you may want to extend it is why.
Yeah,
and we
great.
extended it.
Well, I mean, and I guess my question too is like, what's the goal, right? Because you're not trying to just, well, everybody's Amish now. Like,
Yeah,
you're not trying
totally.
to what would be the goal in your mind?
Yeah, that is the question. So one thing we realized during and after our detox was, gosh, so much of our days, they're so busy in our culture. It's like to-do lists and, we got parents, we got to get our stuff done. The kids have extracurriculars, all these balls in the air. And so too often we're occupying our kids and entertaining them instead of parenting them so that we can take care of the most pressing thing. And the beauty of the detox is that you slow down, you stop, and you say, what are we doing here? What are our goals? What are
what kind of family do we want to have?
Exactly. What are we trying to accomplish here? We have 18 years with these kids. And if you've got a 9-year-old, like I did at the time, I'm like, we are halfway done with having this child under our roof. Where are we going? Where have we been? What's our trajectory like? So it gives you some time to kind of take inventory. Is our daily habits putting us on this trajectory towards where we're trying to go? And so it's really kind of a gut check as a parent. And one thing I love thinking about, because all this really falls under the umbrella of discipleship and our call to disciple our kids and train them up. And our God is so gracious to us. He gives us a lot of latitude when it comes to raising our kids. And, if we're looking for a directive on homeschool or public school, or do we give them organic produce or red dye? Like, you're not going to find that. You're not going to find in the Bible. But we need to really pay attention when God does speak into parenting. And you look back at Deuteronomy, and right after he tells his people, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, he says, parents, talk to your kids about me. Yeah. Talk to them about me all the time. When you're going down the road and when you're laying down and when you're rising up, talk to them about me. This is my paraphrase, obviously.
Yeah, Deuteronomy 6.
Exactly. Yeah. And the problem now in our culture is that most of those gaps are occupied, walking along the road, driving in the car, laying down, rising up. They're occupied by a digital device. And so as we're looking at that bigger, 30,000 foot view of discipling our kids and where are we going, it's like, how do we structure our days and our households to support this directive that God has given us to talk about him all the time? And where we see in the proverb telling us to train our kids up in the way they should go. And I remember Brad talking about that actually is saying train them up according to their bent. So our kids are uniquely wired. And are we cultivating that? Like, are we helping them to identify, like, here's your gifts? And also, frankly, during your detox, a lot of parents report, man, my kid has some blind spots. Like, they're not really good at taking turns. And so you might see like, I need to equip them better here. Like they could use some coaching. So it's this whole, it's kind of hitting pause, reassessing, and then the ultimate goal is, how are you discipling your kids, and how can you make screens work for you? How can you put it back in the right place so that it's serving you rather than the other way around?
That's so good. Most of the parents that are listening to our podcast right now, they care about this topic. Like discipleship is important, and I think the things that we try to do is just to get them to be equipped or think about new things. But what's the end result? Not the end result, because obviously you're still in process, but what's been the result so far of the spiritual side of things? Like, have you seen a difference in your kids from a spiritual standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest component behind that is the relationship. It allowed us to remove a filter that was kind of a blockade between our ability to connect with each other. And so our relationship was able to kind of amp up. We were able to connect on a higher level. And, a lot of parents, and I'm sure your listeners are great parents that are struggling with this. They're reading the books, they're listening to the podcast. Sure. They are addressing screen time and setting limits, and they're mindful and still seeing a problem. And so I guess I would just want to encourage parents too, that if you are paying attention and if it is kind of a mess, if 1 out of every 5 or 10 attempts at imparting wisdom and biblical instruction in your kids is turning out great, then apply. Like, that's a huge win. I was laughing with David this morning because I'm like, man, one of the kids, we try and listen to, there are some great resources online through technology we use. We can get, the Bible Project is fantastic at helping our kids understand context.
Sure.
The New City Catechism is on there helping really sound theology. And so we try to impart, we listen in the car as we're going along the road. But one of my kiddos said, out of nowhere while we're driving, said, Mom, I really wish that Adam and Eve didn't eat that fruit. And I'm like, yeah, man, like, tell me more about that. Like, what are you thinking? He's like, yeah, because I really just want to be like I want to walk around naked. And I'm like, oh, man, thanks. Oh, well, I think you missed the point a little, like tiny bit. But
what else?
Was there anything else in there? Yeah.
Like
how about the
something
fall?
Good, something wholesome. Like say
Give
something different.
us something good here.
Yeah.
But my point is that we're trying and we're failing and we're trying again, and that's kind of just par for the parenting course here. And but once we removed this like status quo of just filling all of these gaps with noise, with digital entertainment, we were able to connect with our kids more, and we had more opportunities for the stuff that a lot of your parents who are listening are already doing. But taking this break just gives them more chances.
When we talk about like kids and stuff and family, like we're obviously talking about parents too, right? And do you find that like most of the parents need this just as much as kids?
Yeah, absolutely. The last chapter of my book is actually called Tech for Mom and Dad. And you're spot on there, because all of the studies, all of the data shows that the way that parents model, really with anything, but especially with tech use, the way we model it is going to tell our kids so much more than what we say about it. Yeah. So we should be absolutely taking inventory of that. I detoxed myself for the book too, because I wanted to live this thing out. And it's trickier the older you get, because the world we live in, it's like, well, okay, I grocery shop on my phone. I talk to my kids' teachers on my phone. I make appointments. I do work on my phone. And even social media too can be super redemptive in sharing. That's where parents are. And so you get to share these. But so the place we landed kind of in taking that big picture view was, we want to use technology to connect with each other and to create. That's how we mostly want to use it. And when it comes to isolating and consuming, we pretty much want to not do that most of the time. So with those broad principles in place, that kind of helped us to navigate the day-to-day parenting on the fly
Yeah.
stuff.
Is the 2-week detox, is it something you see your family doing multiple times throughout, your parenting journey? Is it something you see, or is it something that's just a one-time thing and from then on out you don't need to do it again? What does that look like in concept?
I think it depends on the family.
Mm-hmm.
I've had families come back and say they're doing another one just because they need a refresh, and that's great because your kids get older. And so the rules you have for your 4-year-old, it's going to change. Like, for example, our oldest, we got her a dumb phone, not a smartphone.
Yeah,
I don't.
us too. The
The
Gab
Gab
phone?
phone,
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
So good.
Because, sometimes you're like, I need to know if you're done with practice. And
I think our kids text each other, so
yeah,
that's perfect.
and it's so sweet. And I love that they
play
can connect
Snake.
with each other.
No games.
No, there's no games.
No games, no apps.
No games and no web browser.
Yeah, no web browser.
So that's the beauty of it, especially for the younger kids. So, but some parents will find that they've done a detox and a couple years later or months later, they're like, we need to recalibrate.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like going camping. It's like going camping without going camping if you're not a camping person.
Yeah.
Just unplugging and...
Yeah.
Do you find your oldest gets worried about like being left out?
Not yet.
Okay.
She does text with her friends, and I really encourage that. More often, frankly, she will she will just keep her phone in the kitchen, not check it for a day or two.
That's how Brooklyn is too. That's how Brooklyn is.
Yeah, so I know that's a challenge as they get older. And we have had, we've had teenagers that we've fostered for shorter periods of time. And so we've had the opportunity to see a little more close up what that looks like too. And it does get so much more challenging for kids. And this is why I have a lot of compassion for families. With the trend 10 years ago was give kids a smartphone as early as possible.
Yeah.
And that's the best shot they have. And we've seen over time, the data is showing us like,
Yeah.
oh dang,
Yeah.
we're seeing, we've got this mental health crisis looming. You across disciplines, you talk to neurologists, psychologists, the ER doctors, teachers, they're like, this is broken. Like we did it too soon. And so I think the tide is turning, and I think parents are looking for an opportunity to kind of like reassess. And that's what I'm hoping that this book gives them the tools to do that.
Well, and not only is it broken, this is the number one addiction that our society faces.
Yep.
And we're going, here, 13-year-old kid, have this new
Unfiltered,
unfiltered,
unfettered,
yeah. And I know for us, we've battled with that same question, like, is Brooklyn, because we've basically, and we hold it with an open hand, but we've basically decided we don't want her to have a smartphone until she's 18.
Wow.
And we know, like, we're going to experience things we don't even know yet that we're going to experience. There's probably some parents out there listening right now that are laughing at me because they're like, you don't know yet.
Yeah.
But we ask the question, like, being left out of what?
Yeah.
Like, if she's being left out of parties, great. Like, if she's being left out of cyberbullying, awesome. Mm-hmm. But we also, we got the group text like option on the Gab phone because her life group, they use a group text, and like if we didn't get that option, which we had to pay $5 extra a month for it. It's
the world we
expensive.
live in, yeah.
But if we didn't get that option, she would have been left out of something that was wholesome and important and godly. And so we're just starting to kind of ask, what are the things that she's being left out of, and is there a way to deal with that without giving her this?
Well, and it sounds like you guys are being
cocaine
thoughtful about it. Like, and I'd imagine that your kids would, like, just appreciate, rather than, like, a hard line, it's a, hey, we're just going to evaluate, and we're going to make sure, like, having an open hand, because then that includes them in the conversation. And, there was, I don't know if you did a lot of research on, like, just broad technology use and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah,
and just,
for sure.
I think... a while back, do you know who Neil Postman is?
Yeah.
So I read his book, Amusing Ourselves to Death. And in that book, he talks about how, like, in the 1800s, when Lincoln was campaigning for president, he and his opponent used to just come out to cities, and people would come out and listen to, like, a 4-hour-long debate and be like, oh, yeah, like, and just people just... they're just like, yeah, this is the most entertaining thing I've seen in weeks.
I can't wait for it. It's like a concert.
And for us, it's like TikTok is like a minute to 3 minute max, and it's just like that's the most we can handle, you know. And it's an endless stream of novel information.
If I watch a reel that's longer than 20 seconds, I'm out.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
And it's so sad.
And we're literally, our minds are being, and he wrote that in like the 80s, right?
Yep.
And it's just like prophetic. And so, I mean, I think about that. I don't know if have you ever heard of the book, author John Mark Comer?
Yeah.
He wrote
Ruthless
The
Elimination
Ruthless
of
Elimination of Hurry. And I mean, in that book, he just wholly challenges us that it's stealing our souls in some ways, right? And our ability to actually interact with the world around us. And I mean, I see that all the time in the youth world. And like, I'd just be interested to, like, what's technology doing to us?
Absolutely. Yeah. There was one author out of UCLA who calls it, he's a doctor down there, neurologist. He calls it electronic cocaine. So it's really crazy the way that this technology is hijacking our brains. And the scary thing is, gosh, we could talk about this all day. It's so fun. Okay, let's do it. What's crazy is that one thing that parents are seeing of young kids, if you have younger kids, you've probably seen this a lot. You turn the screen timer dings, you turn off the tablet or take away the tablet, and your kids melt down. And it's like, gosh, they seem too old for this, and it seems like a behavioral issue. But what we have learned is that it's actually, you're watching a dopamine crash in real time. Because what's happened is that the dopamine that gets released in our brains when we experience anything that's pleasurable or enjoyable, you smell a flower, dopamine release. You hug your kid, your dopamine, taste something delicious, dopamine. Okay, well, these psychologists and neurologists have worked together with these Silicon Valley engineers, and they've baked dopamine release points into these apps and games so that it's triggering the kind of dopamine
like the
release.
reward system in your brain.
Yes, and it's getting released in quantities that we've never seen before. So much so that dopamine receptors are numbing out in kids. Like, you can see this. So it's that same addictive pull where now it requires more dopamine to get the same level of enjoyment you once had before. And that's why our kids are complaining of boredom when they're not playing on a device, because real life can't compete with that. So, as we are beginning to understand kind of the science behind it, and all these disciplines are coming together from ministry perspective, from neurology therapists, ophthalmologists. I talked to one, a speech therapist. They're like, this is insane. Teachers, they're like, it's hurting kids. And, something you said, Mike, too, was these kids, before they go through puberty, before they go through that awkward phase of like, who am I in this world? Where do I fit in? Am I loved? Am I known? Before they go through that natural rite of passage, they're going on social media, and they're forced, instead of doing that inside work, they're forced to kind of project themselves, this image out there on social media, and say, like, this is who I am. And so they've gone from what has always been in the home, unconditional love, acne, morning breath, and all from your parents. They're going from that
Braces,
to
awkward bowl haircuts.
all of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah, that's what Mike had.
I did.
Right?
I did. I rocked it. You remember.
You could totally do a bowl cut, Mike.
I did. I rocked it. Little waves in front.
It's amazing.
Parted down the middle.
And now it looks like they did the opposite.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm paying for that haircut years later.
It's too heavy,
friction
too much
from
weight.
the bowl, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what is the end result of that much dopamine at that young?
Well, it's creating a dependence on these kinds of digital devices. And that's not even to mention, like, what our kids are finding on here. You talk to parents in the church, and these are great parents that are working hard at the formation of their kids. And they're like, we do the devotions, we do family dinners. And so for 15, 20 minutes a day, they're reading their Bible, they're having the spiritual conversation, and their kids are spending 3 hours on TikTok, on getting these, when you hand your kids a device with internet access, even whether it's an iPad, a computer, a smartphone, if they have that access, you're opening up this valve of information. Yeah. And so therefore, how can 15, 20 minutes of spiritual formation compete with 4 hours of uncensored whatever?
As a parent, you don't even know what they're inputting into their lives. Like,
and everything's formative.
And we used to we never had control, right? My parents didn't have control over what input came into my life, but we had to take away YouTube from our kids because all of a sudden, like, they're watching wholesome, like, videos about God, and 3 clicks later, it's like, how did you get there? Like, how you're watching this content? I would never want you to watch it ever, and you've gotten there in 3 clicks. And so we had to take that away from them. And the other thing I was thinking, I would love to hear what your thoughts on this, Molly, but you mentioned kids and like the dopamine and them putting themselves out there, you know, before they've even figured out who they are. But I think even for adults, like, we've turned into a culture that finds their worth and value in a like. Like we I'm confessing, like, this is and I'm guessing you guys can relate, but you post content. How many minutes does it take for you to look at that content again after you've exited out to just see, has anybody liked it? Has anybody commented on it?
Yeah.
Like, what do people think? Oh no, this video that I put up, it only got 7 likes, and this video got 300 likes, and so I must have been better on this day. And we're starting to define our success, whether people like us, based on likes that we get on Instagram or Facebook. And kids, they know nothing. They know no different. So for me, like, I can remember a time where that wasn't the case, but for them, they don't know any other way to define their value and worth. And so parents are fighting against technology to instill worth and value into their kids in a biblical way.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And also, I'm thinking as you're talking, this is a huge opportunity, because how beautiful to share, to kind of vulnerably share a little bit of that with your kids. And like, as they're coming of age and looking towards social media and what that looks like for them, just being open about, like, frankly, here are some of my concerns, and here's why our family does it a little differently. And a lot of parents will hear, oh yeah, my kid comes home and says, everyone in my class. Well, usually that's not exactly true.
Yeah.
But also, you know, like you were saying, Jordan, too, welcoming that conversation. And when you can share vulnerably, like, hey, look, we're normal human people responding to a brain stimulus that really smart people, their full-time job is on the other end of this phone to keep us scrolling, and they're good at it. And so we also, no one's immune to it. We fight the pull too. And so that's why for me, like, I like to keep my phone in my room. Otherwise, when I'm supposed to be doing this, I'll start, 10 minutes later, I'm scrolling, and where did the time go? So sharing with our kids our vulnerabilities and how we put up barriers to protect ourselves is important and awesome. And also showing them, like, look, I'm not afraid of this technology. I want to, it can be so redemptive and so good.
Yeah.
And also, I want to teach you, I want to develop that wisdom and discernment in you as I'm learning it too, so that when you go out, by the time you're 17, 18, like, I'm hoping that there's almost no real parental limits. Our role will have transitioned more to like that mentor kind of role and coach. And so,
well, and if anybody thinks that, like, you guys are some kind of Luddites or something, like, we just talked about how your family just watched through all the Marvel movies. This is not the case that, like, Molly's like, maybe someday you guys will be like me, never use technology.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's what does it look like to have a healthy relationship with this thing? Because Mike, I've always thought, like, I know I'm weird, but I've always thought I was really weird. Because I don't view social media that way. Like, I don't know, if you look at my online presence, it's pretty sparse and just like whatever. But I'm definitely addicted to technology. And like, I mean, there's nothing more sobering than when your kid goes, Dad, get off the phone, play with me.
Totally.
Well, and I do think, you're, I'm not going to say weird. Like, I don't think you're strange, but you're definitely the minority in our country, especially, and probably in the world. But I think what Molly said was so fascinating to me is I've never thought of pulling my kids into my own struggle. With other things I do, but with tech, I don't really, like, helping them understand why that's bad through my own experiences, so valuable. That's such a good point that you made, and I'm so grateful for that. I mean, and I think, Jordan, as you struggle with, different things, I'm guessing you're no stranger to a TikTok video or, different things. But media, it consumes us, and it's us spiritually, right? it's us trading something greater for something lesser.
Yeah.
And it's just because it's convenient. It's right in our pocket.
And Mike, you might be able to speak to this. Like, I mean, there's this like weird thing in the pastoral world where like people ask a lot of you all the time, and it's probably similar to being a parent all the time, or even like a stay-at-home parent, right? And where people are always taking from you, and very rarely are people pouring in, and so it is very natural to want just, hey, this time's for me, you know, like I'm gonna check out actually, yeah. And if you're not intentional, because it's kind of what we're talking about here, right? And that's what I think that's what that verse in that set of verses in Deuteronomy is really about, right? Is like, hey, if you let your life be about discipleship, these kids are gonna catch things more than when you teach them directly, and so just do it along the way and be a family that's about this stuff, and that can be a really beautiful thing. But like, let's do it together, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And this is the beauty of the latitude that God gives us that I was talking about earlier, is that families land in different places on what their digital entertainment consumption looks like. Like you mentioned, our rules right now, I'm happy to share those with you too. We don't do interactive, like, digital entertainment during the weekdays. So like no video games during the week. And then on the weekends, we will allow our big kids to do like an hour max of, you know, an approved game in a common area, like the kitchen.
What about TV?
TV. So that's a great question. So we do during the week, after dinner and dishes are done, everyone's got their PJs on, we'll plop on the couch as a family. Not every night, but you know, often, and we'll watch like a Guy's Grocery Games or, you know, part of a movie. We love Lord of the Rings. We're going through the extended version right now. It's taking a long time.
Good for you.
But and this goes back to the thing about different families landing in different places. Like, there's nothing inherently wrong. Like, there's great storytelling on these movies, and there can be so many redemptive aspects. And that's my perspective. And, you know, that it's coming from someone who, my dad provided for our family. He wrote television. He wrote sitcoms. Yeah. That's what put food on the table.
Well, and spiritually, we're not Gnostics. Like, we're not saying everything is bad except for the Bible. Like, we're just saying let's use some wisdom.
Exactly. And I think the pendulum has swung for a lot of parents, especially in the wake of COVID and being locked down, and parents having to work from home, and
even school is on technology.
That was tough, right?
And that's the crazy thing.
You had no choice as a kid. Yeah.
And screen time actually doubled since the start of the pandemic. Totally. Recreational screen time has gone from about 3.5 hours to almost 8 hours.
Well, it actually became the babysitter, right? Because parents had to go to work. I mean, we've heard horror stories of you know, even here in Fresno, of parents having to go to work and leaving their young kids home by themselves because they had no other option.
Yeah.
And it was a really hard time, and I know screen time did not go down for sure.
Yeah, which is, and that brings up another point, which is, you know, there doesn't need to be shame in this conversation, or because people were put into impossible situations, working from home, with kids who are out of school, or teachers sometimes having to teach a class. I was talking to a teacher having to teach with her kid on Zoom school in the other room, or several kids. It's like, what are people supposed to do? But all of that coming back to, if you feel stuck, like digital entertainment has taken too much of a hold on your family, is filling too many of the blank spaces, you can put it back in its right place in your home. And it's simpler than you think. And I hope that I've given parents the tools how. I think you can find that in there.
I think it's been great. I think this is valuable information. Molly, remind us one more time, what's the title of your book and where can people find it? Because I know we've pre-ordered ours and can't wait to get it.
Oh, good. I can't wait to share it with you. It's Digital Detox, the 2-week tech reset for kids. And you can find it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million.
Okay.
Target.com, Walmart.com.
That's Books A Million's a real website?
It is. Apparently, I don't know if they have them here in California.
That's a big promise, like 1 million books.
Do you have any other like resources that you can like point people to as well if they're not ready to read the book, but will eventually?
Yeah. That's a great question. Okay, if you need some more help, tools, you're not convinced, but you like, I want some more, you can go to my website, mollydefrank.com. I have a free quiz you can take. It's like how to start your detox. And I have a lot of free resources like ideas for screen-free fun, really great books to check out from the library for your kids. Just kind of good stuff to get you going. So I hope that helps.
And she's super funny, so check it out.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. We've really enjoyed our time.
Yeah, I appreciate
Thank you
it.
for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the WellCast. As always, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about us. For more information about the Well Community Church, visit thewellcommunity.org. Thank you for listening to this episode of the WellCast. As always, don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about us. For more information about the Well Community Church, visit thewellcommunity.org.